Am I the antagonist for calling the cops on my grandpa when he locked me and my family out of our house? My family and I, 17 and B, recently bought my grandpa's house after we lived with him for a year. That was always the plan, but we had to save up first, and he was the one who offered for us to buy it as he wanted to move somewhere warmer. Throughout the whole time of us saving up, he constantly complained about how long it was taking and how he wanted to move soon, and his girlfriend's lease was almost up, so she had to move soon. We finally sold our old place and gave him the money, but then he switched up saying he still had a lot to do in order to move. It was going to take a while for him to move, which I understand, as moving doesn't happen overnight, but if that was the case for him, why was he always complaining about it taking too long? He finally started to pack up his stuff, and we were happy to have the house for ourselves. We had planned a family trip to an amusement park a few months ago, and we left for 2 days, but when we got back we found my grandpa's car gone and all the locks on the house changed. We had checked the garage, and the door and windows had been boarded up, and the garage remote was either in the house or gone. My mom called my grandpa and they were arguing over the phone. Apparently he said that he wasn't coming back to the house for a few days, and he only did it so he would have time to get his stuff without us bothering him. I was fed up at this point, as he had always caused drama for no reason other than liking to cause issues. Some of the things he would do to cause drama were turning the heat/air up an uncomfortable amount and putting a password on the thermostat, blocking some vents with wood so whoever he decided would either be very hot or cold, purposely hitting our car with his because he didn't like the car, and so on. He had already signed the contract for the house, so it was completely out and he had no right to do what he did. I went to the backyard and called the cops explaining everything and gave them his girlfriend's address and all the info, but when they came to our house with my grandpa, my mom was very upset with me and told me we didn't need to bring police into this and could have worked it out with him ourselves, but I was so tired of his drama I thought it was the best option. All they did was make him give us the key and asked if we would agree to give him it one day to get all his stuff out, and we agreed. So am I the asshole for calling the cops on him? Side note, I might have not explained all the house buying stuff very well because I'm only 17 and don't know much about how it works. Edit, I already put this as a comment before figuring out how to edit a post, but my stepdad agrees with what I did and said he wished I would have talked to him first, but doesn't think I did anything wrong, and my mom isn't upset I didn't talk to her first. She's mad I called the cops at all because she doesn't think he did anything wrong and says he was just worried about us kicking him out before he could get his stuff, which I don't agree with at all. NTA, as soon as he signed that contract, he had no right over that house. Calling the police was very much necessary, as he was attempting to lock you out of your own house. I don't know if you can edit a post or how to do. I'll just add this as a comment, but I had a conversation with my stepdad and he said he agrees with what I did but wished I would have talked to them first, and if I had he would have called the cops for me, but my mom is still upset with me for calling them at all. NTA. What you did was a quick and effective solution to a needless melodrama. I think you did the right thing. And I think you did the right thing that you didn't consult your parents before making the call. Sometimes a little courage at right time is all you need, and unnecessary discussions would have just emboldened your grandfather. Now your grandfather will think twice before messing with your family. Am I the antagonist for not officiating my brother's wedding if my future sister-in-law doesn't apologize to my fiancée? A bit of a long story here. I, 33 male, got engaged to my longtime partner, 30 female, this summer. My brother, 29 male, got engaged to his partner, 29 female, literally a week later. We have never been fans of my brother's choice in partner. She is very self-absorbed and emotionally manipulative, and has driven wedges between my brother and multiple family members. The family generally sees her as a bit of a gold digger. She even planned her own Disney proposal and guilted my brother into dropping $13,000 on a ring for her. She also tried to get my brother to cut ties with our youngest brother at one point, as she and him never saw eye to eye. She doesn't have a great relationship with her own mom and has generally latched onto our mom as her de facto mother figure. She will constantly call and text her throughout the day. She also has a habit of inviting herself along when my mom is going out to dinner with other people/relatives. It annoys my mom to no end, but she's too polite to say anything about it. She even went wedding dress shopping with her a few weeks ago. Anytime somebody says something to my brother, he gets very defensive and says not to involve him. With that said, after they got engaged, we tried to make nice. I had even agreed to officiate their wedding, as I have done that for friends in the past. My fiancée went shopping for her wedding dress this weekend. She invited my mom, and her own mom and stepmom flew in from out of town. While they were getting brunch beforehand, my brother's fiancée kept calling and texting my mom asking to be invited out. My mom told her to ask my fiancée, something she never did. My fiancée only wanted the moms and didn't even invite her bridesmaids. After she get persisting, I texted my brother and asked him to tell her to stop, which she did. I thought that was the end of it, but apparently my future sister-in-law threw a giant tantrum afterwards. My mom tried to call my brother, and she picked up his phone to tell my mom she isn't speaking to her. My point of view is that she owes both my fiancé and my mother apologies. She tried to invite herself to an event that had nothing to do with her, but which was a very important life event for my fiancé. She then proceeded to make it about herself when she set some very reasonable boundaries. She never once asked my fiancé's permission. With that said, her narrative of events is that we meanly went out of our way to tell her she wasn't welcome. Am I the antagonist for refusing to officiate or even attending my brother's wedding if they don't have the courtesy to even apologize to my fiancé? NTA: be prepared to sacrifice your relationship with your brother though. You know his fiancé is selfish. I wouldn't expect much. NTA: your future sister-in-law is a bully and a nightmare, and you all need to start standing up to her and backing each other up. Your poor mom needs to remember she has a spine and wasn't born a jellyfish. Everyone needs to set firm boundaries with this nut job. It's only going to get worse. No, you are not the a-hole. We teach people how to treat us, and it sounds like your sister-in-law has not ever had boundaries enforced with consequences. You cannot keep the peace without boundaries. So she is willingly removing herself from attached to your mom's hip position and not talking to anyone, and one of your family's gripes with her is she inserts herself into everything. Game 1, OP. Should she apologize? Sure. But it seems to me that you have some blissful separation from her. Enjoy it. Am I the antagonist for saying my husband was selfish? I, 28 female, am married to Jack, 29 male. We have a 3-year-old daughter, Daisy. I work in a museum, originally wanted to be an archaeologist. I really like history and geography. I spent hours as a teenager watching documentaries, reading history books, going to museums, etc. And obviously I still do, because of my job. Whenever we get the opportunity to go on tours or trips, I get super excited to hear the history of different buildings. Recently we booked a tour guide boat, which I was really looking forward to. It was the 3 of us that went, and for the first half I was really enjoying myself, but it was also super hot, and Daisy ended up wanting to go downstairs where there is AC. I asked Jack to take her, since he isn't as interested in history, and he wasn't that excited for the trip. I wanted to stay upstairs because that was where the tour guide was, and where you get the best views. Jack refused to go downstairs, saying that he was taking pictures and I should just go. I told him that he wasn't even listening, and I could take pictures for him, but he told me to get over myself and take our daughter downstairs. I went down, but honestly didn't enjoy myself at all. The only view was the water, and you could barely hear the guide at all. It really ruined my mood because of how excited I previously was, and when we got off the boat I told Jack that I thought he was selfish, since this wasn't something he was even interested in. He got really upset, saying that I was being childish and should get over it since it's just a boat and our daughter came first, and that I had probably heard all of the tour stuff before anyway, which, no, I hadn't. I knew about some of it, but that's all. We've been tense since. I've tried to get over it, but I feel like he really disregarded my feelings, and he's still saying that I'm being childish for being annoyed. I don't know. Am I the antagonist for calling him selfish? Small edit. Since I think people are getting the wrong idea, we brought our daughter purposefully because we thought she might enjoy it. She had sunscreen, water, etc. I'm not inherently upset that I had to take her. Obviously she comes first or I wouldn't have went downstairs at all. I'm upset at how much he undermined my feelings and genuinely feel he was selfish for how he acted on the boat. Edit 2. I guess another reason this annoyed me so much is that I take over parenting for him quite often. He enjoys music and concerts, so I often end up watching her while he's away at one of those. In reply to some comments asking if I have watched her for him. If your daughter comes first and it wasn't such a big deal, then why couldn't he take your daughter downstairs? I could be wrong, but he seems to be stuck in the parenting is a mom's job mindset. Hard pass from me. You have every right to be upset, and he needs to actually listen to your concerns. Perhaps a tune-up with a marriage counselor is in order for you both. NTA. Facts are facts. He was selfish. He knew you were very interested in what the guide had to share and that he himself couldn't care less. He completely invalidated you because he doesn't personally find those topics interesting. He's 100% TA here. NTA, he destroyed his own argument when he said your daughter comes first and that it's just a boat. If he truly felt that way, he would have gone down with her. He didn't. He made you go even knowing how much you felt about taking the trip. He's actually the selfish one. He was selfish. If he was a good partner, he would have taken her downstairs as the tour meant more to you. Photographs don't trump the experience. He's an equal parent, so why did you have to miss something that was more important to you? Am I the antagonist for telling a friend's GF that she's not a doctor and that presenting herself as one is misleading? I, 28 female, am a radiology resident. The other day we were hanging out with friends and one of them, let's call him Jason, brought his new GF, Alice. So Jason asks me to repeat a story from work that I had told him earlier that week for everyone to listen. Alice interrupted me directly and exclaimed that we are colleagues and she could relate to my story so much being a doctor herself. I thought great, it's cool to meet new people who can relate to the hardships of medicine, so I asked her if she's a resident or an attending. She's a little older. She then said she is a dermatologist, so I assumed she meant a dermatology attending. The conversation continued and I eventually found out that she's not a physician but a nurse practitioner, NP, working at a dermatologist's office. For those of you who don't know, NPs have the right to practice independently in some states, meaning without the direct supervision of a physician. If you don't work in healthcare, you probably don't know the situation, but let's say that's not a good idea. Limited knowledge and education leads to a lot of mistakes and lowers the quality of care. Obviously, that's not a universal statement. I love the NPs I work with, but if you know, you know. So I tell her, then you're a dermatology NP, not an attending dermatologist, and she got offended. Began saying that she can do anything a doctor can and sometimes even better. I said I don't doubt your abilities, but it's misleading to present yourself as a physician, especially to patients who don't know any better. She called me an elitist and left the bar. Jason called me the next day and asked me to apologize to Alice for offending her profession. As I said, I have nothing against NPs, but calling yourself a physician and claiming you have the exact same knowledge, if not more, is incredibly misleading. So am I the antagonist? Edit, paragraphs edit 2. I didn't call her out in front of everyone. It was more of a conversation between me and her. I doubt the others were listening as they were engaging in their own conversations. Edit 3. Not some of y'all calling me sexist and then assuming I'm a man because I'm a physician. I'm a woman, as stated at the beginning of my post. Last edit. Thank y'all for your comments. You all are right, I do sound condescending and bitter. I have had a shit ton of bad experiences of patient mismanagement from mid-level providers, and I'm just tired. No hate to NPs, y'all are a valuable part of healthcare. I work in medical and I know that I cannot call myself a nurse or doctor or radiologist or surgeon or any other title I have not earned. I have a very specific set of skills for my niche. She has a set of specific skills for her niche, but she is, technically and legally speaking, not a doctor. She cannot add MD to her stuff, she cannot practice in most states, and she is presenting herself in an unethical manner. You also did not call her out in public for this, but in a private conversation. If she doesn't like getting called out, then she should stop misleading people. Because even with the best intentions, it was misleading at best and an outright lie at worst. NTA. It's a serious thing to present as a doctor, or a cop, or a judge, or a Purple Heart winner, without being one. She is in the medical profession, and I have no doubt she knows this. To be clear, what she did was unprofessional, and where I live it's illegal. You didn't humiliate her in public if you were having a conversation with her and everyone else was distracted. And if you had humiliated her, she would have deserved it. You do not owe someone an apology for misrepresenting herself as a doctor. She is lucky you're not reporting her to whatever the medical standards body is called where you are. You need to tell Jason that you're sorry he's in an awkward position, but that Alice cannot represent herself as having qualifications she doesn't. That she is in the medical profession and it is unacceptable she is doing this. He may be angry or face pressure from Alice to cut you off, but I wouldn't worry about it. Someone who is doing what Alice is doing is going to have problems in her relationship sooner or later. NTA. Nurse practitioners are valuable for handling minor, lower-level things so a doctor doesn't need to, and as a valuable backup to a doctor. They're not doctors. It seems it's her who is insecure of her title, otherwise why call herself a dermatologist and not what she actually is? Anyone could have called her out on it, but you especially have a bit more leg to stand on. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad it's his fault I raised my brother? My 20 female mom died 7 years ago when my little brother 10 male was 3 years old. It really devastated all of us, and of course I miss her more than anything. If she was still here, things would be so much better than they currently are. Her death really destroyed my dad. He just became really withdrawn and pretty much only focused on going to work and coming home. He fell back on taking care of each, so I started doing it instead. I would miss out on school dances, social events, award ceremonies, etc. to take care of my brother. I stopped even trying to go out, BC. When I did, my dad would always ask me to cancel plans to look after E anyway. I was supposed to go out of state for college, but BC, I knew my brother would end up having to fend for himself. I picked local school instead. I still live at home and even work from there so that I can help out too. I've tried not to be upset about it too much. BC, my father lost his wife and I know that he's hurting, but I just wish I could do something other than be my brother's parent. School started up again for my brother recently, and while I was making dinner he took a flyer out of his backpack and gave it to me. It was a notice about a meet the teacher night. He was telling me all about the other details of it when our dad walked in the kitchen and asked what was going on. My little brother kind of dismissed him and told him it was just between the two of us, but maybe he'd talk to him about it later. The topic was switched after that and my brother didn't bring it up again before he went to bed, so I didn't really think anything else of it. We did the whole teacher night thing, which I informed my dad of via text, and when we got back home my dad sent my brother upstairs. BC, he wanted to talk to me. He told me that I need to tell my brother that I am not the one he should be asking about important school stuff because I'm not his mother, and I'm definitely not his parent. He said it was disrespectful of me to even take E to the event in the first place, but especially malicious for me to let my brother continue acting as though I am his mom. The whole thing just pissed me off. I told my dad that it's his fault my brother views me that way to begin with, because he clearly wasn't up to doing the job after our mom died, and that the only person he should be upset at is himself for making his grieving daughter take up all of the duties that he fell short on after the death of his wife. I told a friend what happened, and she does think I'm right, but she also thinks it was cruel of me to say it like that to my dad. BC, clearly he's still hurting. Now I'm not sure if I was being an asshole. NTA, he's still hurting, so you are. That is still no reason for letting you take all that burden. He may be hurting, but he is an adult and a parent. It's his job to suck all that up for the sake of his children. NTA. Your dad needed a wake-up call. Hopefully, he realizes his mistakes and rectifies what he can, at least with your brother. Your dad owes you a massive apology and needs to take responsibility for the hurt he caused you. NTA, the parentification is what he did to you. He is mourning, but all of you are. I can't help but feel there's an element of misogyny rooted in him expecting you to take over the care of your brother. You were a child but had to take on adult responsibilities because your father failed in his duty. Grieving is no excuse. A parent sets aside their own pain to be who their child, need. It is long past time for your dad to face reality, and the reality is that he fucked up and let everyone down. Hopefully he will own that and take steps to do better. Am I the antagonist for telling my uncle that I honestly don't care about his feelings, and if he ruins my wedding I won't forgive him? My Uncle Chris is a great guy and our families have always been tight, but I am planning a wedding and he is driving me batshit insane. Chris hates my future mother-in-law because he worked his whole life at the same company waiting to get into a certain position, and they decided to hire externally. Mother-in-law got the job, but it was hard on Chris because mother-in-law typed her resume on her phone and clearly didn't proofread it. It looked like a high school kid wrote it, and she refused to interview. He is put off by some of her other behavior, but mainly that resume because it was a joke, and he waited his whole life for that position. Every time they are in the same room due to pre-wedding festivities, he has to take some dig at her. He said she was too old for the color she was wearing. A color? He told my mom to not let her talk to my dad, because she will fuck anyone. He randomly threw a shirt at her when she was wearing a bikini and called her attention-seeking. It was a pool party and she was not the only one in a bikini. He wanted to invite her BF to the bachelor party and buy him a hooker. He made fun of her for not being married, then told her BF not to marry her because if they had a church wedding the stained glass would shatter. Mother-in-law actually thinks this is funny, but it is stressing me out. Also, mother-in-law's BF loves to play white knight and defend her. Mainly he just loves to hear himself talk. I find him pompous and unbearable, but holy hell does this man love a good argument. I recently sat Chris down and said the comments need to stop. I don't want a shred of drama at my wedding. I don't want to listen to mother-in-law's windbag BF, and I don't want mother-in-law having ammo to trash me to her family that I let this happen. Chris said he was just having fun and blowing off steam. Then he began to get emotional and said how much it hurts him and how demeaning it is working under her. I might be an asshole because I said it is my wedding month and I just don't care about his feelings, and if he ruins this with any drama, I won't forgive him. He apologized, but my cousins later called me and blew up on me about how I was selfish and callous. I feel I might have been a bit of an AH because I know how much he wanted that job. I know how much mother-in-law sucks with her attitude and shitty resume, and I can't even imagine how she must act at work. I just have a very strong aversion to drama and don't want to listen to mother-in-law's obnoxious BF. NTA. Your uncle is directing his anger at the wrong person. Instead of being mad at your future mother-in-law, he should be mad at the company for which they work. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Chris is not a great guy, WTF? He's a vile misogynist pig, and shame on you for not calling his bullshit out. Honestly, he's acting so poorly I don't feel sorry for him at all, not even about the job. And it's no wonder mother-in-law's BF defends her, no one else will apparently. The way you speak about the guy drips with condescension, and you find him pompous? Look in the mirror. Also, you do not get a wedding month LOL. You come across as so self-centered throughout the whole post. ESH. Wow. How much must Uncle Chris stink at his job that a woman with a crap resume full of spelling errors who refused to interview got the job instead of an internal hire? He's blaming the wrong people. He can blame himself. He can blame the upper management who overlooked his contributions to his company in favor of an outsider with a bad resume. But why blame her? However, telling someone you don't care about their feelings was a mistake. If you don't care about his feelings, why should he care about yours? Learn this word, nevertheless. Use it. I understand you're hurt. Nevertheless, I really want my wedding to be drama-free. Please stop. I know you feel like you're just letting off steam. Nevertheless, this is the wrong time and you will hurt my feelings. If I'm important to you, then please stop. ESH. Your uncle's problem is with his employer for choosing an external candidate with a child's resume who refused to interview for the position over a known quantity in an existing employee. He has a legitimate grudge, but he's expressing it in the wrong way to the wrong people. This issue has nothing to do with you or your wedding.